Hello and welcome to this video lecture for the University of Connecticut's online course, Classics and Ancient Mediterranean Studies 1103, Classical Mythology. I'm Roger Travis, Associate Professor of Classics at the University of Connecticut, and whether you're enrolled in this course or not, I hope you enjoy the lecture and learn something about new ways of looking at classics and at myth. Thanks for watching.
So here's the payoff at the very end of the Metamorphoses. Julius Caesar is introduced by the god Aesculapius. Now you may remember Aesculapius as a son of Apollo really from quite early in the Metamorphoses, but all of a sudden he comes back because Rome has stolen him pretty much, or rather they've persuaded him to come to Rome. Okay, why do you need Aesculapius in Rome? Well, you need him in Rome because Aesculapius is the god of healing, and Rome has a serious disease problem. Like many great and fast-growing cities, it is in a floodplain, and as you may know if you've played Sid Meier's incredible game Civilization in any of its versions, if you put your city in a floodplain, you are going to have disease problems. Sewage and waterborne illness are some of the problems you're going to have. You'll also have a lot of mosquitoes, and your city is going to stink. I really think this is incredibly clever on Ovid's part. He calls attention to how disease-ridden Rome is at the same time as he's saying, oh, but it's okay, we've got Aesculapius now. And he's saying, we had to borrow Aesculapius from somewhere else. At any rate, it certainly bears thinking about that Julius Caesar is preceded immediately by the figure of Aesculapius. And then, on page 374 of Melville's translation, this is what happens. Yet he, even so, had come from overseas to join our shrines, but Caesar is a god in his own city here. He was supreme in war and peace, though not his great campaigns triumphantly concluded, nor his feats achieved at home. His glory gained so fast made him a star, a comet new in heaven. Rather his son, for nothing he achieved was greater than to sire this son of his. All right, hold on a second. Did Julius Caesar actually sire Augustus Caesar? No. Augustus Caesar is Julius Caesar's adopted heir. And then there's the little matter that in introducing Julius Caesar here, Ovid is saying that all of that cool stuff that Caesar did, which may or may not really be that cool, but in any case, all of that cool stuff wasn't the thing that made him a god. And then he puts the emphasis on the fact that it is his quote-unquote son, Augustus, who is making him a god. Follow that as we proceed. For nothing he achieved was greater than to sire this son of his, to tame the Britons in their sea-girt isle, to sail victorious up the seven-mouthed Nile, where the papyrus blows, to annex for Rome Numidia's rebel tribesmen and their king, Juba and Pontus bloated with the fame of mighty Mithridates, to exult in triumphs and deserve so many more, fine feats indeed. But how can they compare with being father of so fine an heir, under whose sovereignty mankind is given such plenteous blessings by the powers of heaven? Lest therefore he be born of mortal seed, his father must be made divine. Huh? Okay, first of all, how can they compare with being father of so fine an heir, under whose sovereignty mankind is given such plenteous blessings by the powers of heaven? Okay, what if these plenteous blessings aren't actually that plenteous? The way that Ovid phrases it, such plenteous blessings, doesn't actually say that the blessings are plenteous, just that the degree of plenteousness that the blessings have attained is greater than the glory that Julius Caesar gained from his deed. But the kicker is even better. Lest therefore he be born of mortal seed, his father must be made divine. That is, in order that Augustus be capable of being deified, Julius Caesar has to be deified too. That is, Ovid is nearly saying flat out, the reason for the apotheosis of Julius Caesar is in order that Augustus be a god himself. And if you're among the many people who don't think of Julius Caesar as being such a great role model, it's even worse, because what Ovid is saying is that the deeds of Julius Caesar are clear precursors to the deeds of Augustus Caesar. All of that, however, is really just a setup to the apotheosis itself and the way Ovid characterizes the assassination of Julius Caesar. We're at the bottom of page 375 in the Melville translation. The gods were moved, but none can break the ancient sisters' iron decrees, yet they gave portents unmistakable of future sorrows. What Ovid's talking about here is a tradition that seems to begin early on of stories of omens that were present the night before Caesar was killed, and it would be something, obviously, that official sources would want to put around because it shows that Julius Caesar was a divine figure and that the gods were looking out for him. But what you'll see here is that in Ovid's description of these portents, he goes way over the top in such a fashion that my own reading is that the audience is expected to see that all of these are trumped up reasons for the deification of Julius Caesar. So here we go. Battles in the clouds, with clash of arms and horns heard in the sky, and trumpets sounding fear foretold the crime. The sun's face, too, in grief, shed lurid light upon the troubled lands. Among the stars firebrands were often seen to flare and flame, and from black rain clouds drops of blood would fall. The star of dawn shone dim, his features blotched with black and crimson. Blood blotches obscured the chariot of the moon. The Stygian owl in countless places cried his dirge of doom. In countless places ivory shed tears, and voices chanting menaces were heard in sacred groves. No victim could avail. The liver's lobe was found cut through. The guts foretold vast turmoils looming. In the squares and round men's houses and the holy shrines, dogs barked all night, and silent ghosts were seen walking abroad, and earthquakes shook the streets. Even so, the gods' forewarnings failed to foil the treason and defeat the march of fate. Come on. Anyway, I wouldn't be so convinced of that reading of Ovid's list of portents if it wasn't followed by this description of the assassination itself. Into the sacred edifice drawn swords were brought. Okay, the sacred edifice is the Senate chamber. Into the sacred edifice drawn swords were brought. For that foul crime, that bloody deed, in the whole city no fit place sufficed except the Senate house. Major double meaning here. The meaning that Augustus is supposed to get, if he ever reads this, is those conspirators who killed my adopted dad were so bad that they even decided to kill Julius Caesar in the Senate house, just proving how unbelievably bad and awful they were. But the other meaning, I think, is Ovid's real meaning and his most important meaning. There is no better place in Rome for an assassination than the Senate house, because Rome itself is founded on violence. So in Book 15 of Metamorphoses, Rome is bad, Augustus is bad, the gods are bad, humanity is bad. And that's the light that I want to see the very, very end of Book 15 in, where Ovid seems to be saying that he's happy with his work and now he's going to live forever as a poet. I think he wants us to take that ironically. He may live forever as a poet, but it's a very mixed blessing, and perhaps not even a blessing at all, because he makes it dependent on the sway of Rome's might. Wherever through the lands beneath her sway the might of Rome extends, my words shall be upon the lips of men. If truth at all is stablished by poetic prophecy, my fame shall live to all eternity. It's another one of these if sentences, where the if clause is at the very least very chancy. Is truth established at all by poetic prophecy? Well, part of what Ovid has been doing for 15 books is saying, no, it's not. How doubly ironic, then, that he has survived so well even to our time, survived in a way that I would suggest is to be misunderstood time and time again.